Hey guys, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and I'm back to do two videos for you guys tonight. But before I do, obviously some sad news. Mitchell Ryan passed away this morning. Um, it's really sad. I want to give, on behalf of every Dark Shadows fan, obviously our deepest sympathies uh, for his family and his friends at this time. And before we get started, going to take a moment here and give a moment of silence for the late Mitchell Ryan. So, okay. So, my two videos here tonight are character retrospectives. One is about Dr. Julia Hoffman from the 1991 revival, so that's who we're going to do first. Each time I talk about Dr. Julia Hoffman, I do bring up, the character history, and I'm going to do that here again tonight. So, in the 1991 Dark Shadows revival, they cast legendary actress Barbara Steele for the role here, and wise choice. I mean, what an actress, Grayson Hall is a great actress, and so is Barbara Steele. And you might say, well, what's the biggest differences between the Julia Hoffmans? Okay, keep in mind in the original series, and I know I've brought this up before, Dr. Hoffman was initially supposed to be a man. They obviously, I know you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times, so I'm not trying to repeat this, but again, it's important in its own way. When they first mention the character, they mention him as a man. They mention her as a man. They say his name's Dr. Hoffman. The next time we hear the name Hoffman, it's Dr. Julia Hoffman. The character undergoes a bit of a sex change, if you will. And wise choice, they cast Grayson Hall, obviously. And we first meet Grayson Hall's Dr. Hoffman inside the walls of Wyncliffe because they fake Maggie's death. Now, with Barbara Steele's Dr. Julia Hoffman, there's no sex change. It is Dr. Julia Hoffman, obviously. Also, I love how they're bringing her in and they're introducing her. I love how they're introducing Dr. Julia Hoffman. We don't meet Barbara Steele's Dr. Julia Hoffman inside the walls of Wyncliffe. There is no Barnabas kidnapping Maggie in the 1991 revival, and I love that. The 1991 revival, it is what it is. It is a reboot, but in but it's its own reboot. It doesn't try to necessarily copy the original series for verbatim, and I love it for that. And what I mean specifically too is by its characters. Dr. Julia Hoffman here is coming in at the assistance of, you know, uh, Dave Woodard, and I think he's Professor Dave Woodard here. I don't think he's a doctor, if memory serves. If I'm mistaken, please correct me on this. Um, Again, because there's no Professor Stokes. There's no Professor Stokes in the 1991 revival, which that sucks. But they're wanting to examine these blood anomalies and what's going on with Carolyn. So Barbara Still's Dr. Julia Hoffman gets brought in, and I love her entrance coming off of that train. Dark Shadows in the original and the revival had entrance moments where characters would make an entrance. We know Barnabas's knock on the door, right, in the original. In the revival, in my opinion, Barbara Steele's character had the best entrance, even more so than Victoria Winters in the revival. She gets off that train and she's a presence right away. And there's no, you know, necessarily just completely covering her tracks. She's treating Carolyn in the house, which is amazing, right? What I really what I really like about her character is she's very, I don't think, in my opinion, she's not trying to beat Grayson Hall. She is very direct toward Barnabas. What are the similar now? So is Grayson Hall's. So what's the similarities? And I guess that would be a similarity, so I apologize. What's the similarities? Here, here's the similarities. Barbara Steele's Dr. Hoffman is, I know Dr. Julia Hoffman in the original was, we know was in love with Barnabas. And I know Barbara Steele's Dr. Hoffman is probably, trying to portray that in a way. And I'm not saying they don't do that, but in my opinion, I just don't pick up on that in the revival. I don't pick up on this like, oh, she loves him. She's more, with the revival, the biggest difference really, Hoffman's more treating him like a patient than a love interest. This feels like more of a professional relationship. I think there is scenes where Barbara Steele is sort of watching him with her and is getting jealous. I think there is that, but or Barnabas with Vicky, sorry, but there is that, but it to me it's not really laid on as thickly as it was in the original. If that makes sense. Where in the original, you could tell Doctor Hall, you could tell Grayson Hall's, you know, had developed feelings for Barnabas. I mean, Christine Pearson Caratilli's from Between the Shadows, the Dark Shadows podcast. Shout out to them. Link will be in the description box for their channel. I had asked them when did Julia fall in love with Barnabas, and they brought up when Julia, said bite me, and I agree. That's where you could really tell that, hey, this woman would do anything for him. Yeah, she poisoned him, but it's not like she did what Angelique did. Poison's a favor at this point, sweetheart. Um, that's funny. But so you have back to Barbara Still. I apologize. Again, comparing two characters, same name. So Grayson Hall's character, I felt they got it was more of a, she's in love with him. Yeah, that's her patient. With Barbara Still, she did treat him like a patient. I love how Barbara Still's watching Ben Cross as he's standing in front of one of. She's like, oh, she's got that oh crap look in her face. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, that ain't a good idea to be testing that theory. We could just say you're sick. I mean, and she's trying to. That's just it. She's trying to sell to the sheriff, to Dave Wood. Hey, this dude's sick. Just And no, they ain't having. Well, Dave Woodard is more pushing it at this point. He ain't having none of it, and he suspects Barnabas of what's been going on in town and stuff by now, and Barnabas, pretty much being a vampire, and when he stands in front of the sunlight, it's sort of like, and the sheriff's like, well, what were you expecting to happen? And he doesn't really fully tell. What I find most interesting here is Dave Woodard in the revival has an opportunity to just tell the sheriff, like, look, it, he's a vampire. you know, I'm s- I don't really get why Dave Woodard would have felt they would have thought he was crazy. I mean, because think about it. This is 1991, and I know Dark Shadows doesn't really dwell on outside the world things because they want the isolation factor. But I found it hard to. My biggest nitpick is that interaction, because if you're going to go get the sheriff and bring him to the house where Barnabas is, and you see Barnabas, and look, Barnabas was just sweating profusely. Ben Cross is standing there. He's like, in the sunlight. Julia Hoffman's like, Barbara Steele's face is priceless. It's beautiful. She's just waiting for him to collapse, right? And I love it. That's one of my favorite scenes in the revival. I really feel, where Grayson Hall dealt with injecting people with sedatives and did treating them, Barbara Steele's Julia Hoffman felt more like a doctor who kept turning around and treating people, where they sort of get away from that a bit with actually Dr. Julia Hoffman. She does treat Maggie for a bit. She does, but she's more hypnotizing her. She's not giving her, medication. She's just hypnotizing her. And she is giving Barnabas injections to try to cure him, and he wants to speed up the process. Now, in the difference between the original and the revival with the process of it going wrong is, in the original, if you pay attention, Barnabas asked Julia to speed up to increase the injections, and she's like, no, that could cause an adverse effect. Like, no, we gotta do this at this pace we've been doing it at. It's working. And she's right. And Jonathan Fritz Barnabas wasn't having none of that BS. He's like, no, we're increasing it. And then Barnabas aged, and he asked Julia, "Hey, do you take AARP?" No, he didn't really, but that's funny. And so Barnabas had looked old, and here's what I find interesting with the original. He gets mad at her for it going wrong, and she told him it could have an adverse effect. It's like, Barnabas, she told you, man. She told you. No, you don't care. Okay, you're gonna bite Carolyn here. Oh shit, that ain't good. So in the revival, what you have happen, what's really interesting is she's treating him, and after he sweats and stuff, because Dave Woodard is finding out, he bites Dave Woodard, and then he just stops treatment altogether. He just like, no, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. No, no more treatment. And she's like, now I'm pretty sure, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, that she she also stops it too because she wants him to stay away from Vicky. So maybe that's where I'm thinking the jealousy comes in. So if I'm mistaken, again, please correct me. So Dr. Julia Hoffman does stick around, and obviously we have the seance there. Now, what I find most interesting, Julia really is doing her best to keep Phyllis Wick. What I love about the 1991 revival is they don't freeze time like in the original. And so Julia Hoffman is left to try to keep Phyllis Wick alive, which was really interesting. It's like, holy crap, if this woman dies here, Vicky's in some trouble in the past. But obviously she gets back. Um, really, really interesting how that when Barbara Steele's character meets the ghost of Angelique, she's like, who is that? What what is? And she goes, and Ben Cross, who I swear, I love Ben Cross's Barnabas. It's really good. It's his own, but I swear to God, Ben Cross's Barnabas is like his unofficial addition tape to the James Bond role he never got. I mean, it really is. And he's just like, that, my dear doctor, is Angelique the witch. And the and I would say that would be the biggest difference too. Where Julia Barbara Still's Dr. Julia Hoffman actually sees Angelique's ghost and has to now deal with, okay, there really was this witch. Now now I might have to deal with her. And so she's to that realization when seeing that. With Grayson Hall's Dr. Julie Hoffman, one of the most fascinating things, and Dr. Lane does this too. They both know Barnabas is a vampire. They both treated him for this thing. But when he finally breaks down to Julia and Dr. Lane, he tells them both, we're dealing with a witch. We're dealing with Matt Blood. And Julia's like, Barnabas, come on, a witch? I don't believe that. You want to talk about there are a lot of shocking moments in Dark Shadows. And there are a lot of shocking lines in Dark Shadows. But when Julia Hoffman said she didn't believe in that, and Dr. Lane did too, I was like, what? You wait, but he's a vampire. Why? I was just so complexed with it. And still today, when you go back and watch this, it's just like, it's not, it doesn't make the characters sound dumb. It just, characters do have a belief system. And it's like, look, I can buy that you're a vampire and you ended up with this terrible blood disease that caused you to be a vampire. But the fact that you're trying to convince me you got cursed by a witch, like witchcraft, get out of here. It's really interesting. It really is. And obviously, Dr. Julia Hoffman, after Dr. Lane's death, really does wake up. Okay, we are dealing with a witch, and I think again, one of my favorite lines in that whole thing is later on, D- Professor Stokes. By the way, today is is still Sarah David's birthday. Professor Barnabas asks for a medallion to protect him from a witch. A witch. He wants to borrow this medallion that can protect you from a witch from Professor Stokes. Stokes shows up at the old house, right? I mean, you got to think by this point everybody's been pretty much catering to Barnabas's every need and whim. Everybody has. Even though you know, she had fought with him too. Willie has Vicky. Vicky's pretty much done stuff for him. Not bad stuff. Just she would do stuff for Barnabas. Carolyn has done stuff for him. Everybody's pretty much, oh, Barnabas, yeah, we'll do stuff for you. Here's Professor Stokes. Here's Barnabas Combs. Barnabas Combs goes, well, do you have the medallion? Will you show it to me? Professor Stokes, I'll show you the medallion when you show me the witch. And I was just like, oh, snap. It was just like, bam. It felt like he just backhanded Barnabas across the face. Now, he didn't really, but that's how it felt. I think that's another thing, too, the revival really does miss. And at times it does sort of feel like, I'm not saying they're doing this on purpose, at times that Julia Hoffman is trying to be Dr. It feels at times that Dr. Barbara Steele's Hoffman is trying to sort of be Hoffman and Stokes at the same time. I don't think that's deliberate or on purpose. I just feel it comes across that way in my opinion. If you disagree, please do. I do think Barbara Steele's performance is really, really good in the 1991 revival. I think I've covered every difference between the two characters. Again, I do like the fact that they don't really get away. And again, it's because the 91 series is one season. They don't get away from Julia Hoffman's doctoring, where at times in a revival, they do get away from that with, Dr. Hoffman's. Yeah, she does give sedatives, she hypnotizes people, but it's a long time in between where she's just not treating anybody. There's the hell. The only other time we see her at Wincliffe is when they get Willie out, when they spring Willie out. That wasn't a good idea. In the original series, I'm talking. Um, first of all, I want to thank you guys for just listening to me talk Dark Shadows. And again, just want to give my deepest sympathies to the Ryan family, Mitchell Ryan's family. Um, what an amazing actor. Again, I didn't know him personally. I want to make that very clear. But just from all the Dark Shadows fans, thoughts and prayers are with you, and God bless you. Thank you.